My dad stole my identity to take out a $40,000 loan. The bank thought I was defaulting. I thought it was a mistake until I saw his signature in my name. I pressed charges. The man who raised me called me a traitor. A quiet Tuesday morning. I was making breakfast before work when my phone rang. A woman with a clipped, polite voice asked if I was aware I'd missed 3 payments on a personal loan I'd taken out 6 months ago. I froze. My credit was clean. I'd never taken out that loan. At first, I thought it was a scam. I asked her to verify the account, and she calmly read off my full legal name, my social security number, my address, my date of birth. All of it was accurate. That's when the floor shifted. I asked her to send over the loan agreement. She emailed it while we were still on the call. I opened the document right there at my kitchen table, and I saw it. My name signed at the bottom, but not in my handwriting. It was close, but not close enough. Whoever forged it knew how I signed things, but the loops were off. The pen pressure wasn't mine. The spacing was wrong, and then I saw the listed phone number. One I recognized instantly. It was my dad's. The listed email, his personal one, the one he used for everything from grocery coupons to car parts. I didn't know what to do at first. I just stared at the screen, my breakfast cold. The phone still pressed to my ear. The bank rep was asking if I wanted to arrange a payment plan. I couldn't speak. I ended the call and sat in silence for a long time. That loan wasn't a mistake. It wasn't fraud by some stranger across the country. It was my own father. And I realized, with a slow kind of burn settling in my chest, that he hadn't just taken out money, he'd handed me the bill, quietly, willingly, like I owed him. I've never been reckless with money. I didn't grow up with much, so I learned early how to stretch a paycheck, how to fix things instead of replacing them, how to save for what mattered. I'm 29 now. I work in IT support, not flashy but steady, with just enough income to pay rent, keep my car running, and set a little aside each month for the future I'd been planning, maybe a down payment, maybe grad school, maybe just breathing room. I wasn't rich, but I was responsible. My relationship with my dad wasn't perfect, but it wasn't broken either. He was one of those guys who called once a week, usually while fixing something around the house, loud TV in the background, tools clinking. We didn't talk about feelings. We talked about car batteries, heating bills, and the weather. I thought that was just how dads were. Not warm, but they're consistent. Reliable in the way bricks are reliable, solid, unmoving, maybe a little cold. Growing up, he worked hard. 2 jobs at times. He hated asking for help. Prided himself on doing things his way. I respected that. So when he lost his job 2 years ago, I didn't hesitate to help. I paid off his utility bills once. Bought him a new phone when his broke. Never made it a big deal. Just small things. Quiet gestures. Because that's what you do for family, right? Looking back, maybe that was the setup. I was the good son, the one who didn't argue, the one who always stepped up. I never made him feel like he owed me anything. I didn't ask for receipts or promises, just assumed he'd be honest with me because I was honest with him. I didn't see it coming. That's what hurts the most. Not the loan, not the debt, but the fact that he knew I'd never question him. And he used that. It started with a voicemail. A short, clipped message from someone at Capital West Financial, asking me to return their call about an urgent matter related to my loan account. I stared at my phone for a second. I didn't have a loan account. Not with them, not with anyone. I hadn't borrowed money since I'd paid off my student loans 4 years ago. I thought maybe it was a scam. I called back anyway, just to be sure. The woman on the other end asked me to confirm my full name, date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my social security number. When I hesitated, she calmly said, "We have you listed as the borrower on a $40 personal loan issued last June." I remember gripping the edge of my desk. She continued, "You've missed 3 payments. We've sent multiple notices to your listed email and address. This is your final warning before we escalate." My first instinct was denial. I told her there had to be a mistake. I asked her to send me the loan documents, anything with a signature, an application form, payment history. She agreed, and 10 minutes later, I had the files open on my laptop. It was all there. My name, my address, my social security number, my employer's name. Everything matched, except the signature. It looked like mine, similar enough to fool someone, but not me. I knew how I signed my name, and this wasn't it. Then I saw the listed contact phone number. It wasn't mine, but it was familiar. I'd seen it for years. It was my dad's. And just below that, the email address his old Yahoo account, the one he'd used since I was in middle school. I sat back in my chair, heart racing. I wanted it to be a mistake, a weird coincidence. But the more I looked, the more it felt like falling through a crack in the floor, slow, helpless, and terrifying. I didn't know what to do next. I paced my apartment for an hour, staring at the papers, rereading them like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something less awful. But they didn't. It was all too clear. Someone had taken out a massive loan using my name, my identity. And that someone was the man who taught me how to tie my shoes, how to change a tire, how to stand on my own 2 feet. I didn't rush over that night. I waited until the next day. Part of me wanted to believe there was some kind of explanation, something I'd missed. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe someone had hacked his account. Maybe he'd been tricked too. I printed out the loan documents, highlighted the contact info, circled the forged signature. I wasn't angry yet. I was still holding out for something that sounded like a reason. When I got to his place, he was in the garage, half under the hood of his truck, a wrench in his hand like it had never left. I held out the folder and said, "We need to talk." He didn't ask what it was. He didn't even look confused. He just wiped his hands on a rag, took the papers, and flipped through them like he already knew every word. When he got to the last page, he closed the folder and handed it back. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said. Just like that. No denial, no apology, no shame. I told him I'd never signed for any loan, that he'd used my information without my consent. He shrugged and said, "It's not like you were using your credit for anything important. You're young. You'll recover." I remember standing there, jaw tight, fists clenched, waiting for something, anything that sounded like regret. It never came. Instead, he said something I'll never forget. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. You're lucky I didn't take more." That's when the anger hit me. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that settles in your bones and doesn't leave. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He thought he was entitled. He didn't steal. In his mind, he was collecting. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the papers at him or call him names. I just walked out. Not because I didn't want to fight, but because there was nothing left to say. I got in my car, shut the door, and just sat there for a while, watching the light in his garage flicker through the windshield. That was the moment the relationship shifted. That was when I stopped being his son and became just another resource he'd burned through. I thought maybe the rest of the family didn't know, that maybe it was just my dad's mistake, his lapse in judgment. But within a week, I found out I was wrong. It started with my mom. I hadn't heard from her in a few days. So I texted, asking if she'd seen the loan paperwork. She responded with one sentence, "You're overreacting." He did what he had to do. No greeting, no question, no sympathy. Then came the call from my uncle, my dad's older brother. He asked if we could talk like adults and told me to stop dragging the family through the mud. Apparently, my dad had already told everyone his version of the story, that I was trying to humiliate him over a misunderstanding, that I was threatening legal action over a few missing payments, and that I'd always been difficult when it came to money. A narrative was forming, and I wasn't the author. Soon, cousins I hadn't heard from in months started chiming in. Passive-aggressive comments on old Facebook posts. A cryptic Instagram story from my sister saying, "Some people forget who raised them." I hadn't even talked to her yet. The story had spread, and I was the villain, the ungrateful son, the selfish millennial who couldn't cut his dad some slack. What stung the most wasn't the name-calling. It was the silence from the ones who used to stand with me. My aunt, who once told me I was the most responsible one of my generation, said nothing. My grandfather, who taught me how to budget, didn't return my calls. They didn't defend me. They didn't ask for my side. They just stepped back, and I felt it. That slow drift of people pulling away, not because they believed him entirely, but because it was easier than confronting the truth. I was alone, not just legally or financially, emotionally. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to take a side. So by default, they took the man who committed fraud became the misunderstood father. And the one who paid my bills on time. who worked hard, who never asked for help, became the problem child. The one who made it messy. I didn't want to sue my father. That was never the plan. I kept hoping, maybe stupidly, that he'd come around. That he'd call, admit it, apologize, offer to fix it somehow. I would have even accepted a partial truth. Anything that sounded like responsibility. But all I got was silence from him, and pressure from everyone else to let it go. Meanwhile, the debt was real. The payments were showing up on my credit report. My score had dropped nearly 90 points in 2 months. I started getting flagged for high risk by my bank. When I applied for a mortgage pre-approval, something I'd been planning for over a year, I got denied. Not because of my income, not because of my history, because of the loan I never took. The one my father opened in my name. That's when I knew this wasn't just a family problem anymore. It was a legal one. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer who specialized in identity theft and financial fraud. She didn't mince words. "This is a Class C felony in this state," she said. Flipping through my paperwork, "You can press charges. You should—" I asked what would happen to him if I did. She looked at me and said, "That's up to the DA. But right now, he's walking free while you're the one paying the price." I went home that night and sat with it. Not the debt by then. I was numb to the numbers. What I sat with was the weight of that choice. If I filed the report, I'd be the son who turned his father in. I could already hear the judgment, the whispered conversations. But if I didn't, what then? Live with a $40, 000 lie tied to my name. Let him get away with it, just because we shared blood. So I filed the paperwork. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because I couldn't build a life on a foundation someone else cracked. I needed that loan removed. I needed my credit repaired. And above all, I needed to know that I could draw a line and hold it. That I could say, "Enough," even when it meant standing alone. The day after I filed the report, my dad posted a long message on Facebook. I didn't follow him anymore, but someone screenshotted it and sent it to me. It was filled with vague accusations, phrases like betrayal from within. Children these days have no loyalty. And all I ever did was provide. He never used my name. But everyone knew. The likes, the comments, the shares they piled up fast. Then came the texts. "You really called the cops on your own, Dad. Family isn't perfect. But you don't air it out in court. You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I was done explaining. But that didn't stop the ripple effect. A cousin tagged me in a post saying, "Blood doesn't mean anything anymore." I guess an old high school friend messaged me to say my dad looked heartbroken. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my life. Even at work, I started noticing the shift. My coworkers were polite, but quieter. A few asked if I was okay, but most didn't say a word. One morning, I overheard someone whispering in the break room, "Isn't he the guy suing his own dad?" It wasn't malicious, just distant, like I'd become radioactive, too messy to engage with, too complicated to stand beside. My mother sent a letter. A real one. Handwritten. 4 pages long. She didn't deny what he did. She didn't defend him directly. But every sentence was soaked in guilt mine, not his. "You could have handled this privately. We've always been a proud family. I don't know how to look your father in the eye anymore." Not once did she ask how I was doing. Not once did she say, "I'm sorry." And I think that was the moment I stopped hoping, not for justice that was already in motion, but for repair, for reconciliation. For someone in that family to say, "This was wrong, and you didn't deserve it." I realized that the moment I stood up for myself, I stopped being family. I became a threat. And when people feel threatened, they protect the story they know, even if that story is a lie. Court wasn't like the movies. There were no gasps, no shouting, just a cold, fluorescent-lit room where everything felt smaller than it should. I sat behind my lawyer, tie too tight, jaw locked, trying to stay calm while my father sat across from me. Calm, arms folded, like he had nothing to answer for. His attorney tried to paint a picture of misunderstanding. He said the loan was taken with the best intentions, that my father had planned to pay it off quietly, that the paperwork was incomplete, but not malicious. He used words like miscommunication, family breakdown, unfortunate tension. Never once did he say fraud. But my lawyer came prepared. She laid out every payment notice, every forged document, every financial impact I'd absorbed my damaged credit. the mortgage denial, the increased insurance premiums. She presented the signed loan application next to my real signature from DMV records, side by side. The differences were obvious. She didn't have to dramatize it. The facts spoke for themselves. Then came the bank statement. My dad had made only the first 2 payments. After that, nothing. Not a dollar. And instead of addressing the loan, he'd booked a trip to Arizona, bought a new set of tires, and transferred money to another account under his name. There was no plan to pay it back. There was just spending. The judge asked my father directly, "Did you apply for this loan using your son's identity?" There was a pause, just a beat, but long enough to hang in the air. Then he said, "I used his name." "Yes, but he's my son. I didn't think he'd mind." The courtroom stayed quiet, but inside me, something cracked. That was it. That was his entire defense. I was his son. Therefore, he had the right. My stomach turned. The judge's face didn't change much, but her voice grew sharper. She called it what it was: identity theft. A felony. She ordered the loan nullified, instructed the bank to remove it from my records, and referred the case to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. For the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like I owed someone something I never agreed to. But the space between us, me and the man who raised me, had never felt wider. The day after the hearing, I woke up without that weight on my chest. No loan, no calls from the bank, no legal letters piling up by the door. For the first time in months, I didn't feel hunted. But peace doesn't feel like celebration when you get it this way. It feels quiet, strange, hollow. My father didn't reach out. Neither did my mother. No apologies, no phone calls. Just silence, the same kind they used when I first confronted them. My lawyer said the district attorney might pursue criminal charges, depending on how the paperwork lands. I told her I wasn't hoping for jail time. I just wanted the truth to be on record. I wanted something official that said, this wasn't my fault. The rest of the family didn't say much either. A few cousins unfollowed me. One aunt sent a short message that said, "Hope you're happy." That was it. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to explain. They weren't there when the loan tanked my credit. They weren't there when I was denied housing or had to reroute every financial plan I'd worked for. But somehow, I was still the one who went too far. At work, things slowly returned to normal. My manager pulled me aside and said, "You handled yourself with more restraint than most people would." That meant more than I expected. My coworkers stopped tiptoeing around me. One even bought me a coffee and said, "I heard what happened. You did the right thing." Mal, it helped, not because I needed validation, but because I needed to know I hadn't imagined all of it. And yet, even with the case resolved, the loan erased, and my credit slowly climbing back, something in me still felt unsettled. It wasn't the debt. It wasn't the legal battle. It was the silence from the people I used to think would always have my back. People who raised me, who taught me to tell the truth, to take responsibility, to protect what's mine, but never told me what to do. When it's them, I need protecting from. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who takes a parent to court. Honestly, I still don't know how to fully process that. Some days, I feel proud for standing my ground, for protecting my future. Other days, I feel like I lost something I didn't know I still believed in. People talk about boundaries like they're easy to draw, but the truth is, they're messy, especially with family. You're told to respect your elders, to keep things private, to forgive. But what happens when the people who raised you are the ones who cross the line? When they teach you right and wrong, and then expect you to ignore both for their benefit? I didn't press charges to hurt him. I did it because no one else would protect me. Not my mother, not my relatives, not the bank. I did it so that someday, when I try again for a mortgage or apply for a job that runs a credit check, I won't have to explain a loan I never asked for. I did it so that I could sleep at night without shame, without debt, without lies wrapped in family names. There's still a part of me that misses the old version of us. My dad and I, working on his truck, Sunday mornings with burnt coffee and no words. I miss the simplicity of believing he'd never hurt me like that. But that version of us doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it never really did. If you're watching this and you've been through something similar, I hope you know, you're not selfish for standing up for yourself. You're not cruel for saying no to being taken advantage of. And if you've never been in this position, I hope you never are. But if that day comes, I hope you choose the version of yourself that refuses to stay quiet. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done? And if you've ever had to make a choice between protecting your peace or preserving someone else's illusion, how did it shape you? And if you're still here, thank you for listening. Really, it means more than you know.